I want every white person in this room who would be happy to be treated as this society in general treats our citizens, our black citizens. If you, as a white person, would be happy to receive the same treatment that our black citizens do in this society, please stand. You didn't understand the directions. If you white folks want to be treated the way blacks are in this society, stand. Nobody's standing here. That says very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you're so willing to accept it or to allow it to happen for others.
What's up, everybody? Ashling Cole here. We are changing up the format of our show to have a discussion. This is Better Together. I know that you're used to us laughing and smiling and joking. And trust me, we still believe that the joy of the Lord is our strength. But I just thought that we needed to take a pause and start a conversation today. So I am pleased to have some incredible men on this call, pastors, leaders in our community that I completely respect and admire. And it's going to be an interesting time. It's going to be an interesting time. So let me bring my co-host in here, my bestest friend, Jacoree Prothro. Hello, friend.
What's up? How are you?
I'm good. I love that you're out in the backyard today.
You know what? You got to get some sunshine with all that's taking place.
Right.
This is about all I could do because I sure ain't getting no sleep.
Right. You shared that with me. And I think that, can you just talk about that for a second? Because I think that that's really important. A lot of people are losing sleep right now. What's that been like for you?
Well, the thing is, you take a look at the news and the news is only giving you so much. So I have a wide span of friends that are out in the streets. They're going live to where you get that online, on time news to where you're actually seeing what's going on behind the scenes versus the same rotation that the news is showing on 2, 4, and 7. So
right.
I've just been like in awe because I would never, it's like a movie in places that I've actually walked, I've actually been. So it's just like, for real, this is really taking place.
Yeah, it really is taking place. It really is. And we talked about this on Shop Talk yesterday. For those of you that joined us, I missed out on some of that conversation, but maybe Jacoree, you can share some of those things. But I was really pleased that we were able to just come together and take a break from, because this is not, here's the thing. I don't want another Black man to be killed in the street at the hands of police officers. We talk about it for 2 days, or 5 days, or 7 days, or 30 days, and nothing changes, and life goes back to normal, whatever normal is, and then it happens again, and then we're like, are we literally scratching our heads, like wondering how could this be happening again? Are we really saying that? My goal today is for us to get real. My goal for us is to get real. Let's put it on the table, and let's really hash this out. And I'm really calling for people that look like me to start having the conversations, having the difficult conversations, but the necessary conversations we're not going to have change until that happens. Now, I will say, when I look at the news, I'm happy to see faces like this taking to the streets.
Right. Well, you see a lot. You see a lot of them. Yesterday, there was a live. A friend of mine was live and he was just like, oh, just give the waters to the Black people. I had to chime in. Anybody that's walking with you right now is supporting you. Give the waters to the people that is thirsty.
Yeah.
And it just, it kind of, I don't know. I have woosah moments because I remember being in school reading the history books when it was history time of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and many others that don't really get their names called out. And I didn't really realize that there's still, even through those times till now, there has been no equal. The equation has not been equal on both sides, period.
Right.
There's been a light change And I mean, now we don't have to necessarily go through the back door or go to the black sink, but it's still been so much stuff put under the rug to where
Right.
it's just like, wow.
And ultimately, are the feelings any different? That's because that's my question. Does a black man in America today feel any different than a black man in America 50 years ago?
Right.
I mean, if we're really being real, I don't think so.
And I just hate that sometimes, my thing is, it's not like, okay, I was brought into the world and I was able to say, oh, I want blue eyes, I want black hair, brown skin, tan skin. We didn't necessarily get to choose the color that we have, but we have the battle.
Right. And we can choose which leaders we have, that are helping or not helping. Okay,
Exactly.
I want to get right into this. Let's get all our guests in here. We've got so many people in the backstage. Let's get Pastor Bo Jackson in here. This is my pastor. Hello, good afternoon, sir. Very happy to have you. Oh, I think you're on mute.
We want to hear your voice, sir.
We need to.
Uh-oh, he's trying to figure it out.
All right, maybe Dito can help with that. There should just be a mute button at the bottom. All right, we're gonna come back to you. Let's put. We're gonna come back to you.
Yeah, play and just give us a hallelujah.
Yep.
Well, anyways, we can bring Pastor Ty Carter on. Ty,
yep.
You matter. Come on.
Yeah. Can y'all hear me?
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Pastor of Well Springs on board.
Good afternoon. How y'all?
Grateful to have you here, sir. I really appreciate you joining the conversation. Let's also bring in Jonathan St. Clair, Reverend Jonathan. Hello. Can you hear us okay?
He's trying to work it out.
How's it going?
There you go.
Hey, there you are. Hey, Jonathan.
I can hear you all right.
Awesome.
Little
Awesome.
feedback on my end, but
okay. I hear it too a little bit.
I'm in my car.
On your end. Gotcha. Okay, no problem. I'm so glad that you're here to join us. I really appreciate it. I think we also have Minister Eric with us.
Come on in the room.
Hey.
Hey.
How you doing? It's so good to see
I'm
you.
Good. Good to see you too. Thanks for having me on here.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
And if we can get Pastor Bo back in here when he gets his microphone, let's see if we can get him in here as well.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Still can't hear you.
There you are. All right. So just a little trick of the trade. If you have your phone, if it's resting on a table or on a surface, that can cause some feedback. So it's better if you just kind of hold it or get it off a surface. That'll cut down on some feedback. So let me just share with you what happened for me in the last 48 hours. So I was raised by two very active civil rights parents. They were very active in the community. I remember being on picket lines. And so what I'm seeing now is not new. It's not surprising, and it doesn't shock me. It doesn't, I'm not confused that this is how people are responding, because if we look at our history, this is how change happens. We go out to the streets, we let our voices be heard, and that happens. And then change starts to happen. However, when I saw the events yesterday with Trump, that's what I call him, Trump, and how he had he had a speech that he was talking about. He stands with the peaceful protesters. If you've been following him on Twitter, you know that his language has been very strange with black versus white. Is very, very clear that he treats people different and he calls people different things. But anyway, he was saying he was in alignment with the peaceful protesters. Then he had the police there push through a barricade of peaceful protesters, with the the gas, the bombs, and all that stuff going off, the tear gas, just so that he could walk to St. John and
Take a picture.
a picture with a Bible. Did you all see this? And he took the picture of the Bible like this in front of St. John. Immediately, they denounced having anything to do with that. The church, St. John, and Eric, you can help me with the language because I don't know the
diocese.
There's the Archbishop, I think, of the Archbishop of the Diocese of Washington D.C. He's the one that spoke out first, which is, I think, it's basically means he's like the head of all the Catholic clergy in that region. Yeah. Right.
And let me just say, Eric Gilbert is a good friend of mine. He's a minister of music at Christ Church East Bay. And just an interesting perspective from you, Eric, just in all of this with regards, just all of this. I'm glad that you're here to join the discussion. Yeah, so that enraged me. That absolutely enraged me. And it just got me to the point where I was like, we just have to say something. So I know today is Blackout Tuesday. I've already blacked out all my pages. There's not going to be any more social media for the rest of the day, but I wanted to join the conversation. So if you all saw that yesterday, let's just start with what's the climate for you guys? What's going on, Pastor Ty? What's really going on with your congregation in your household? What are you telling? What's going on?
Well, unfortunately, we can't say that anything different is happening. So when you say what's going on, this has been our normal for too long. So because of this, it's almost like we have become numb to it, yet at the same time we're angered by it. Because you never want to get familiar with oppression. You never want to get familiar with doing anything wrong, right? So at this point, like even today, I canceled Bible study tonight in agreement to black out and not use social media. And I only came on for this matter. But we have to take a stand, and I preached about it Sunday. The Lord gave it to me out of Jeremiah, of the prophets arising to speak to power. And the issue is with the body of Christ is that we have now keep allowing to adjust to what's going on versus having things to adjust to what we declare. And because of that, there's no prophets even speaking to President Trump. There's no prophets speaking to the government and those who are in quote, power. And anything that happened in the Bible, we see that there were prophets that spoke to power, and that's how things begin to change. And we need to really respect and raise up, and I really believe God is raising up prophets to speak to it. In Daniel chapter 2, with King Nebuchadnezzar, it was that Daniel was called after they didn't try to all the the sorcery and all these different things. It was Daniel that came with the word of the Lord and was able to release it. And I believe that's even how we have with David and Saul. And I believe that President Trump is the Saul of this time. And I believe that there has to be Davids that are being raised up. There has to be prophets that are being raised up to speak. And so that you'll have to hearken, heed to the word of the Lord. If you think about with Pharaoh, when Moses was told to tell him to let my people go, the Bible says that God said that his heart will be hardened. And I believe that even as we speak, God, with the plagues and all these things, it will be hardened. Yet it is our responsibility to speak the word of the Lord.
That's right.
That's where we've been missing as the body of Christ, as the church, is that now we have been making these adjustments to fit and become comfortable. Even when you think about something like Corona, we made adjustments to fit versus the Bible says we have power to speak to the mountain. If you believe,
that's good.
Shall be removed. Yet we just made the adjustments, just say we're just going to fit. No. We were called to change culture, not to participate in it. And we have to make sure that we do just those things. And I believe that marching is important. I believe the protesting is important. But I also believe the spiritual matters are just as, if not even more important.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make sure that we stand in the gap. We are called to do that. We're not called to be Captain Planet to the point that we are everything, right? So some person might be all the way in on one matter, another person, but then we all have to be. That's why the Bible says that we all have different functions, and we have to make sure that we zero in these, especially in these moments, in our functions, and stop trying to be the arm and the leg. Let others do
That's
the
good.
That's how we're going to unify and become together. And it is important that our other brothers and sisters of different ethnicities, because we're all one race, but of all different ethnicities, that we all come together and actually release the right sound. And then President Trump and all everybody else, they're going to have to follow suit because the right sound has been released.
Come on and follow sound.
That's good. That's good. That's really good. Eric, you want to chime in and just let us know how you're doing with all this and how the congregation is walking through this season?
Yeah, I think I guess personally I'm at a I am at I think a place of it's interesting. I had a conversation with Jonathan after our service on Sunday, and I said, I used air quotes like, this time. Unfortunately, I'm saying this time because there's been so many times before, and this, and I think it's not going to be the last time. Like it's just on and on and on and on, and it's so heavy and it's so hard, and I feel like this time for me personally, I feel maybe at a bit more of kind of a humble and repentant place than I think I've ever felt to go along with that anger that I have. And I think our congregation as a whole is really feeling like they want and need something right now. They need to know, like, what are the actions that we're going to take? What are we going to do about this? What can we do today, not next week, not a month from now? And this seems to be like, it's the most important thing that we could possibly be doing as a church. And that's the mission that we need to have. And in fact, I mean, our mission statement, it ends with we're being a community for the city, and the for the city part is exactly this. I mean, this is what we're doing for our city, and this is the question we need to answer. What does that look like? And we even getting into the nuts and bolts of the mission statement. Maybe we don't even know what that means until now. Like we say for the city, and we've done some really good things, but have they just been things to check off, or is it been things that really matter and make a difference? I think they've been a little of both, but I think I say that because I just get a sense that the congregation as a whole is saying, we don't want to check boxes. We want to really actually take action, make a difference, and live into this mission with our very lives, like give of our whole selves, not just a piece here on a weekend here, on a Saturday here, on a Sunday here, but our whole lives need to be giving in this way. And this is the very fabric of who we are and who we should be as Christians. I mean, this is kind of hanging in the balance, and we got to step up and put our money where our mouth is, so to speak.
That's good.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said that about putting your money where your mouth is, because I've always maintained, and I definitely want to hear from Pastor Bo if he's back with us. I've always maintained that if you want to make a difference, really, then you have to do it at an economic level.
Mm-hmm.
So where, I'm sad that the buildings are being destroyed and, businesses are, glasses being shattered and all that stuff. But I also understand the emotion behind it. I understand the rage. I understand that enough is enough.
Right.
And what do you do with all of that? I mean, years and years and years of frustration and grief and anxiety and fear. And here's the thing, and I just have to say this. White privilege exists. It's a real thing. And if I'm the only one that's, I'm saying about you, but if I'm the only one that says it and like it does exist, and we have to get to a point where we say you can't pretend that it doesn't exist anymore. I can't possibly understand or relate to what it feels like to walk out of my house and have to be afraid every time I see a police car or a police officer. I cannot, there's no way that I can possibly understand that. The reason that I'm so passionate about it, is because I believe in equal rights for all people, but also I have biracial children. And so my fear is about them. My fear is for my daughter. My fear is for my son when they leave the house. So it's real. And until we get real with what's happening, you cannot say you're colorblind anymore. You cannot say that anymore. You can't say we're all the same. We are on a fundamental level, like you said, Pastor Ty, but when it comes down to it, we are not. There are differences. And until we fix the problems where we can all walk down the street and feel safe,
that's right.
Then we can't stop fighting. We can't stop fighting. We have to keep fighting. So I think Pastor Bo is still trying to get on.
We can't hear you.
Jesus.
And I think, because I know he's on there like, I gotta say something. Go ahead.
Maybe he can give us a powerful mind from his chair.
Come on.
But one thing you there?
No, that was me.
Oh, okay. One thing, that you actually brought up earlier today with me was a lot of us don't realize how we spend our money, where we spend our money, and what it's direction to. Because my thing is, I was on my way to go get me a 4 for $4 from Wendy's, like I always do, a little cheap meal, keep me together, not knowing that they are on the other side. I'll say it that way. They're putting money into something that I don't agree with a lot of these other companies that I've been giving my money to. So I think one good thing for us to do is to see where we're putting our money.
That's right. That's good. And I actually asked Jacoree to go online and to pull lists of companies that have either said nothing or have said, where their money is going. Right. And so we found some companies that like Apple. Let's just talk about Apple for a second. So Apple completely blacked out everything today. You cannot buy a song. You can't even search for a song on Apple Music today. They have one playlist and they have made it very clear where they stand. Netflix is another company that made a statement, and they are they support Black Lives Matter. They support the Black Lives Matter movement. So I'm going to call all of you to reach out, go on Twitter. That's where most corporations, they'll put all their feelings on Twitter. Boy, I don't know what it is about Twitter. They be tweet, and they just say all their real feelings. So go and find out who those companies are. But I think Jacoree has a couple.
Well, what I looked once I saw what Wendy's was doing, because I hit them all the time. I looked at for the people that actually support Trump, and that that I go to, and some of them were In and Out. The Chick-fil-A, love them.
Sorry, Dito.
Olive Garden, IHOP, Carl's Jr., love Carl's Jr., baby. Pizza Hut, Taco Bell. And so McDonald's actually send them some money too, but I got to pray on that large fry. I really got to pray on that large fry.
The only one that got it out of that was Chick-fil-A.
But I mean, It's really a trip when you start getting under the rug to see some of the stuff that we just do unintentionally. We just go into these places not knowing the turnaround.
Yeah.
So I think with all that's going on in the world today, it's actually helping us. But what I feel as though is a bad thing that's happened with the church is we don't get under the rug. We kind of stay on top of it. We'll just go across it with the backhand instead of picking it up and actually vacuuming. Because it's time. I feel as though I look back in the day when this stuff was going on. We had Malcolm. We had, all of these leaders. It's time for the remnant of leaders to stand and kind of help us re-strategize.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let's not just talk about this. Let's actually take some action.
Yeah.
Like for real. Okay. Like, let's actually take some action. Let's actually pay attention to the companies that are supporting. And I don't necessarily want to say the other side, but but it is. I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I don't know how else to put it. You know what I mean?
I thought that was an easier way to say it.
Right. And it's really, it's not a black against white or white against black issue. It's everyone against racists.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. So I love seeing people coming together during this time in the streets right now. I've seen some beautiful footage. I have seen, if you really go look at, there are some beautiful, I've seen police officers take a knee with the protesters. I've seen the chief of police talking to the kids that are protesting and telling them how proud he was of them, that they stood up for what they believe in, and hugging the kids and all that. Like, there's some beautiful things that are happening. And Dr. Eric Thomas, who is one of my mentors, is calling for 381 days of press. Let's press for 381 days. Let's not give up until there are changes. Now, that time frame will take us right through the election, which I definitely want to talk about also. How important is it that we get to the polls, that we make sure that everyone is registered to vote? How important is it right now?
It's very important. I mean, but we also have to make sure that we don't just push it for the presidential voting, but we also have to, it's year round, because
local.
Because as we see, President Trump, he tweeted and he got angered with the different governors that he met just the other night, and telling them that they are wimps and punks and all these different things because they're not responding the way that he would. Now, if we don't vote for the right governors, if we don't vote for the right mayors, then they will agree with whatever, and we'll still be in the same predicament. It's not just the president; it's the House, it's the Senate, it's all that. So voting matters, period. Like, we have to exercise that. Like, we have to do that. I know it's the stigma that it won't change anything. It only won't change anything when we don't exercise it. Like, we have to make sure that we use that as a freedom of speech as well. We have to vote, and that will help others see us as equal. Not because my pastor said it's not that Black lives doesn't matter, because he said Black lives matter, so does dogs matter, so does whales' lives matter, so does giraffes' lives matter. But when it comes down to a whale, a giraffe, and me, and it's in a dire need of emergency, who you gonna choose? Do you see me as equal as you, or do you see me as equal as a dog? So it's about that. So we have to vote so that it also equalizes the playing field, but it also helps people understand that that whole Constitution that was written, we are supposed to be created equal. God created us, and we are supposed to live that here on the earth. So we have to vote. And I'm pushing that hard. Like, we have to vote. There's no I don't know. No, we have to vote.
Yeah.
Study, read about it. If you don't know who you want to read.
Absolutely. I want to just point out a comment from Bridget Boyle, who is listening. Hey, sis, I'm so glad that you joined us today. She said, banking is also an issue. Banks like B of A use and benefit from prison labor. Moving to credit unions or Black-owned banks is a great action item.
That's correct.
Great point. Great point. So it's going to require, and this is another reason why we're having this conversation. I am charging all of you to just educate yourself. Just educate yourself on where your support is going. Where is your money going? And who are you supporting? Pastor Bo, do we have you in the building now?
Checking, testing.
Yay! All right.
Oh
Yes,
God,
sir.
thank you for your patience, and thank God for a team that'll call me and tell me what to do. um,
Well, welcome.
where we
Please join. Yeah, so we're talking about. I'm not sure if you were able to hear the conversation while you were working that out, but what's your take on? Of course, you're my pastor, so I have the insight. But what do you want to tell the people about what's going on, about leadership, about the protests?
I believe that on so many fronts, I think that this is uh, this is not just a new issue. This isn't just started. Has not just started with George Floyd. It's been an issue that has been ongoing. And every time there wasn't a verdict, every time there wasn't a guilty verdict, it made people matter more and more angry. And so I think that we've come to a breaking point, in a sense, to where people's emotions are overriding, because once you feel like you have not been heard, you then do whatever you can or to spark the interest of people so that they can actually hear you. And so what I believe, I think Pastor Ty spoke to it best, is that it's time for the prophets to stand up and speak, because again, we have allowed the volume of the turmoil to be higher or be louder than the volume of the actual. We have the answer. And the thing is that if we have the answer in our mouth and the answer, then we should be actually speaking louder, and our voices should be louder and crying louder than the voices of evil. And what I think about leadership, I think enough is enough. And I believe that, some new voices are beginning to stand up and beginning to declare and provide movement and legs to this movement, because the key is what do we do after? And I think I came back in on the part of education. I think it is important that we educate, and we arm ourselves with education. We arm ourselves with who will help in the Black community, who will be able to speak to criminal and systematic injustices. I think that we need to be more diligent after this is over, and not let it just die with the wind. And I think that many times we get angry, we get incensed. I think we want our voice to be heard, and then 2 to 3 weeks later, everything dies back down. But I think that that's when the work begins. The way I take it is, how when people die, and when they die, usually everybody's at the funeral and everybody's at the repast. But when people are needed, it's 2 to 3 weeks later when everybody has gone home. You still need that support when everybody's forgotten about the issue. And I think that that's where we've made the mistake, is that we have not actually done anything or done enough as a unit, as a collective body, after the issue is over. And so I believe that this is the time to plan. This is the time to strategize. This is the time to connect. This is the time to unify, because there's nothing that's impossible when you're unified. And I think I saw somewhere we need to start getting our own banks. Yes, we need to start doing a lot of things. I think that we should infiltrate government. I think that we should have more people stand up and being part of our legislature and our judicial system. And these are the times that we need to start mobilizing and finding out who these new leaders are, and begin to put our weight and our support and our finances behind each one of them, and start pushing the new voices to the forefront. That's where I am currently.
That's good stuff, because I honestly will even say, within the state of the church that I've seen, and I'm still kind of young, is that we've always been scared to pass the baton to the next person when time was up for me. It's just like, I'm just going to sit here at the church for 50 years. No, maybe he was only meant to be here for 3 years. And that's even with what goes on with the older seasoned saints. I feel as though their whole voice has they've been casted out, to where, that's where the respect level within the Black community has kind of left because you don't hear nothing from the old people. Sometimes I need to hear some wisdom.
Well, that's the truth. The thing is that with the seasoned people represents our history.
Right.
The younger generation represents our future, and my age, we represent, where we're going now, and we cannot be afraid to then pass the baton to those who are coming behind us. But it is also our responsibility to help lead them and train them and give them our wisdom and our insight. We can't just send them out to the wolves because they're going to go with what they know. And if they're not educated, if they don't have the tools in their hands because we've neglected them, then what happens is we have a rogue generation beginning to take on leadership positions, and they're going to go with what they are familiar with. And so if they're familiar with anger, that's what they're going to lead with. If they, you know what I mean? So you always default to what you know. And so even what I started doing is educating myself even more, because I felt myself behind the 8 ball of true statistics and true what's going on in our in our cities, in our country. Like one thing that I found out, that there was 1,099 people. They killed 1,099 people in 2019 alone. Police officers did. And there was only 27 days in 2019 that someone in this country didn't get killed. That's a problem. That's a problem. Of that, 24% were Black Americans. Now, think about this. That doesn't sound like a lot, but 24% of an actual 13% of the population, but 24% of the actual killings was upon Black people. And so we have to arm ourselves with education, right, so that we can then arm our next generation who are going to become leaders.
Yeah.
And I think we should fire. This is the last thing. I'll shut up. But since I've been up, I need to say it.
You was on mute, so you good.
But I think that I was listening to some other people, the McBride brothers, Ben and Michael McBride, and I love those guys. And one thing that they said is they kept saying, we need to push a movement to fire racist cops. And what they mean was like the police chiefs all across the country should speak out against racism and put out the word that we will not tolerate this as a whole. And then we begin to create the systems that, fact check those things. And so I just feel like there are things that we can do on our levels. Me and Pastor Ty, we're both new at pastoring, but I think we still have a voice in that we can start doing things on our level. And when you have more, you should do more. Those who are in higher power should be more responsible.
Let me even pause to say that I want to encourage both of you, because I know both of you. I know your history. I know the whole walk. But I feel as though God has chosen you for just a time as this, because I feel as though you guys are a part of that remnant. Because it's leaderships across Oakland and the Bay, and they just sitting back and all they really want to do is have church to collect the offering.
Wow.
And I see you guys speaking to your congregations in a different way, and I see an empowerment happening within those circles, big or small. So I mean, I just commend you, because Jesus, I'm glad I wasn't called to do that.
I want to take a little turn here, because for the sake of time, because the time we're like limited on time. So we have an amazing opportunity here with Minister Eric, my friend here. He expressed today on the show that the congregation is kind of like, what do we do? And so I want to see if we can take a minute to really speak to that, because I think that there are people that look like me that want to help, that stand for the Black Lives Matter movement, but we just don't know what to do. We don't know how do we help. Definitely conversations can be had and like we're having here, but what are the practical things that you can advise? How do we support the Black community through this?
I think.
You want to go first?
I was waiting for you to go first. I think that number one is just that support. And that means not texting and saying I support you. I need you to publicly talk about it. I want you to don't text and say you love me and all that. I'm not even gonna respond. I want you to put it out on your social media so that if other people have come to say, let them say. You put yourself on the line just like we put ourselves on the line, basically. So just like we support Black businesses, all that stuff, but put yourself on the line and unify with it. Don't like I think oftentimes, and I'm gonna say it, I want to say it the best way that I can. Oftentimes when we unify, it's like our culture gets put in the background, and then we have to support the other culture versus unifying them together. And so, and that's what has to happen. In unity, that doesn't mean one is greater. We are equal, which means that we literally unified in that. So I think that's really that. Don't be my closet friend. Be public. So, be there all the way, 100%.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that in this moment, you cannot have your voices be silent. And I think that one of the biggest things is if we are the minority, we need a majority to speak on behalf of the minority. I need you to infiltrate and get to understand the frustrations and the anger and the reason and the hurt and the pain that we experience, and that comes through dialogue. But then I need you to also, even if you don't experience the pain, I need you to at least feel it, so that you can then project because you can get places that we cannot. And so I feel like you can, as far as our Caucasians brothers and our sisters, you can get to places that we cannot be heard, because we are already demonized because of the color of our skin. But if you really want to help us, you need to echo what we're saying, because the thing is that we have to make sure that we understand a few things about this. Is that for us, a lot of times we have to be passive. They look at that we can only get along as long as we're passive. And the thing is that they want to die down. They want to, even with the riots and everything that's happening. I want you to understand, and I want you all to feel that this did not just start with George Floyd. So that's that. But this has been happening. And if you and I told some of my congregation on Sunday, we as Black people love you, but it's time for you to stand with us, march with us, have your voice just as loud, if not louder, about the injustices that it's seemingly your people are doing to our people. And I think it's a matter of understanding. It's something that Jesus actually did. I mean, and so I think that I think you need to hear the Black people's story. I think the best way to do that is talk to Black people, figure out what are the the hurts that they're experiencing, and then learn how to not congregate together, congregate with us. And I think that's what be helpful, is that a lot of times you congregate together to figure out what you all can do, but you need to come and actually congregate with us to hear our pain and see what we would like to have happen, and unify, as Pastor Sai said, unify with us in that matter.
That's good. Wow. That's really, really a good word. I want to just take a minute, Eric, unless you want to respond to that.
No, I really have nothing to say. I think that's I got my pen and my piece of paper. I mean, I took all that down.
Yeah.
I just think, to right now is a time to listen, and then soon to take these things and put them in action. I guess I will say, I love the statement. The majority needs the minority needs the majority to speak up, and I've been thinking about that for a while, thinking about what white people can do specifically with their power and their privilege. And it is past time for us to take on that mantle. And you know, not in a assimilatory way, you know, but in a unifying way. And I think there's a difference. There's a way to say we can amplify this platform, and you know, as he said, we can get places where Black people can't get. And that's what we need to do. And we need to, you know, we need to be all about that every time we open our mouths, practically.
Right.
And I think, yeah, I don't have anything else to say. This is just, it's great.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here, Eric. It really means a lot. I also want to just piggyback on what you just said, Eric, that you speak up, even when it's at the grocery store and you hear a conversation next to you or somebody in passing. These are the moments that we miss. These are the moments that we think don't matter. We think, oh, it's just a casual. No. These are roots that are down in the ground that need to be dug up. And the only way they're going to start being dug up is if you start calling it what it is. This is what I'm really tired of. I'm tired of us just whitewashing it, right? I'm tired of us just kind of brushing over it like it's not affecting. It is systemic. It's systemic racism. This country was founded on racism. Okay. That's it. That's what it is. And it has never, ever gone away. So until we start making those changes and dig up those roots, it really won't change. I definitely want to read this statement from
please.
A friend of mine, Dan Wolf, who's an activist and an artist, a Bay Area artist here. He's a hip hop artist. And he just said, I'm honored to be asked to make a statement today. I'm only sorry I couldn't be there in person to speak these words myself and have a meaningful conversation with you. As a Jewish American artist who has made Black music and art forms a part of my career and life, I cannot be silent. I know my art is an adaptation of a voice created by, for, and about Black people. I do not take this responsibility lightly. As I grip the mic and speak in these rhythms and this cadence, I honor the Black culture to whom this is a native tongue. And in doing so, I recognize how critical this moment is. I am calling on all white people to speak out loudly against the systematic murder of Black people. We must call out institutionalized racism from the prison system to our schools, to our cultural organizations. We must have the hard conversations with our friends and family. We must vote with our actions and our voices and our dollars, and demand that people show up on election day to elect a government that represents all of us. The time is now to end white silence. That was from Dan Wolf. Dan, I so appreciate you sending that statement in. And yeah. So I'm loving the conversation about, like we said, action items. Some action items that were said, because I want us to really leave here with a list. I love, Eric, that you're over there taking notes. That is like, yes. So what action items can we take from this? What are 3 things that we could possibly do in the next 5, 7, 10, 30 days? What are 3, pivotal things that we can take away from this to start making some change?
Well, I think top 1 for me is basically seeing where my money goes. And putting it in the right direction. Check out where you're spending your money. Check out what stores you're going to. And see what they support. Because I need everything to line up. It can't just be what I'm saying and my money doing something totally different.
Yeah,
anybody else?
Good.
I believe we should use this time to, especially since we are at home, I believe we should educate ourselves in who are our elected officials and what they stand for. What are they saying during this time? What have they spoken up during this time? I think that this is Because at the end of the day, if there's laws and systems that are not in place are not conducive for us, we have the power to change it. And so I think that our voice needs to be heard, but we need to also educate ourselves, not just where our dollars are going, but who's in charge of these places that affect us. And I think that those, like, who's the chief of police? What are their thoughts? You know, who's our city council? What do they believe? And I think that those things will help us also begin mobilization of changing the government and the system. Because the truth is, we always say that it's broken and the criminal system is broken. I don't believe that. I believe it's really working the way it should, the way it was designed. It was designed for this.
That's
and
right.
So we got to change it.
Hmm.
We got to change the design and the scope of the design. And that's getting people out and putting new voices in.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. I'll tell you what I would really love to see is that when it comes to registering to vote, I just put a link there in the chat. I think that we get overwhelmed with what do we vote for? What do all these letters mean? What do all these numbers mean? You know, who are these people? We get sent a big book of information that can be overwhelming. I would love to see churches in general, like, get on one page. This is probably the most critical point. Get on one page and let's start telling people and showing people why these issues are important. Here's both sides of it. Instead of just, yes, vote for this, vote for this. Let's educate people on both sides of it so they really start understanding the importance of sitting down and reading the information. I'm, you know, somebody that I was born in Canada. I became a US citizen just so I could vote for Barack Obama. And it was something that was my mother and I both became citizens at the same time, just so we could vote for President Obama. And that was really a moment where I had never voted in my life, right? I didn't have a right to vote. So the fact that I had the right to vote now makes me so eager to put that voice, that pen to paper. How would you suggest that we do that? We come together in those issues. I know Jacoree has attended some roundtable discussions with the churches where they put all the issues out on the table. Eric, do you guys have when it comes to voting time, what does Christ Church do as far as voting goes? Or do you all have open discussions about it?
Usually do that in our community groups. Yeah. And I think it is an important issue. Like we will usually say from the pulpit, encourage people to do that and to be informed, be educated. And I think those discussions usually happen in community groups, and there'll be sometimes there'll be a congregant who will, host something that's just sort of a one-off, like, hey, come to my house. We're going to go through, because I think for a lot of people, like at least from the local ballots, like all the measures are sometimes so confusing, like you have Q and R and T and Z and like, I don't know. Like, so help me figure this stuff out. And usually somebody will kind of host a moment where you can come in and kind of educate yourself on that. And so you really understand, like, what is this and why should I vote for this, or why should I not vote for this, or, so I don't skip it all and just, vote for president and pass my ballot and I'm done.
Right.
And I think it's a good time, and I feel as though God is also testing our conversations, because there's nothing wrong with you. Some people are talking and it's just no weight to the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And because I know when I was younger, the older people, like my aunt and my uncle, they was the ones like, this is what this measure means. This is young people today. They don't even really understand the whole value of the whole voting thing. It's been a generation gap that has been missed. So we have to actually make voting fun again. Talk about it. We don't even realize that we're privileged to be able to vote. We didn't walk over that whole mountain to where it don't even matter no more for a lot of people. So I think if we create value around it and actually just make it fun, let them know, hey, it's time to bring back the history.
Yeah. I remember I grew up in the MTV era. So I remember the Rock the Vote, right? That was like, being young and like, I want to vote. I can't wait to be 18 to vote. And now we've got millions of Americans that just sit at home and they just don't even bother. So I understand voting is down the road, like that might seem so far away for people. And I know that like what's important really is right now. It's important then, but it's important right now. I want to give you, because we're running out of time, I want to give each of you a minute just to give us a closing statement. And let me just put this idea in the hat, Pastor Bo, Minister Eric. I would love to see my church and Christ Church fellowship together. I would love to see us come together for a service, for us to come over, visit you guys or something. I would love that. Pastor Ty, definitely want to include you in that, but I would love to see that with these two eyes, to have us come together and have a worship service together. Those are the types of impactful moments that can really move a community to be like, oh, you just shattered all my ideas of what the white church is or what the black church is. Oh, you just shattered it. So now we're really like, man, we can fix this. We can do this. So closing comments, Pastor Ty.
Educate, pray, speak.
Amen. Amen. Educate, pray, speak. Minister Eric.
I was just thinking about these notes that I took, and I feel like almost universally every one of my white friends would all agree with this. And I feel like the next hump to get over maybe to have a conversation around what does it look like to actually like divest yourself of power and privilege to make this happen, because this can't happen at no cost to me, right? Like I have the ability and the privilege to dip in and dip out of this whenever I want to, right? But if I'm going to not remain silent, and I'm going to try to amplify, voices of minority and voices that are unheard, it can't be at no cost to me. So, what does that conversation look like, and how do we start encouraging one another as white people to, give up and divest ourselves of this power and privilege, so that that these voices can be heard and they can be made louder. And I feel like that may be the next hump, past the list of notes that I have on a piece of paper.
Awesome.
So
that's awesome. Pastor Bo, I'm coming to you.
I think that we should just make sure that we understand that there's an issue behind the mask. And I know that when we speak of Pastor Ty, even Jacoree and myself, we have a list of accomplishments and things that we've done to impact our communities. And going forward, we have a lot of work to do and a lot of things that we're going to be doing to impact not only just our communities, but the entire nation. But at the end of the day, when people see us, they don't see our accomplishments. They don't see the great things about us. They just see us as Black men. And so we have to change the narrative and hopefully work with people like Minister Eric, and so that we can change the narrative of the Black man as a whole. We're not thugs. We're not threats. We're not any of that. We are here to contribute to society like everyone else. So I think that's the narrative, and that's the conversation that we need to really turn the volume up on. And so that's what I'm here to do, is make an impact in that area, is to turn the volume up on who we are as a people. And I thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this discussion to do that.
Well, I thank you so much. I'm sorry that we didn't have Reverend Jonathan on here, but I think he had connectivity issues. But Eric, man, so glad to have you in this conversation.
Privileged to be here. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. I see hope. I see hope. Yeah. I really do. I see that there can definitely be change within our community, and you all are such pillars in the community that can really, like, your voices are heard. So let's take it the next step further and make it happen. So this is just a continued conversation that we will have. Definitely want to thank Pastor Bo, Minister Eric, and Pastor Ty for joining us on Better Together. Different kind of show that we had today. Shout out to all of our listeners for tuning in, and please share this. with all of your friends. And let's start today. Let's start today and let this be 381 days of press where we don't stop until we really see the change. Shout out to my co-host, Jacoree, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.